All right, today we're going to dig into a really important law, Republic Act 9147. You can think of it as the legal armor for the Philippines' absolutely incredible and often very fragile wildlife. So let's jump right in and see what makes it tick.
So here it is in all its official glory. The full name is an act providing for the conservation and protection of wildlife resources and their habitats. This law was put in place back in 2001, and it is the absolute bedrock for everything we're going to talk about.
And that gets you thinking, right? How do you build a set of rules to safeguard an entire country's natural heritage? I mean, what are the key ingredients for a law that actually works to protect the most vulnerable among us? Well, that's exactly what we're here to figure out.
Here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the law's main mission, then get into the nitty-gritty of its key terms, look at the actual rules of the game, and finally, figure out who's calling the shots.
Okay, first things first. Let's tackle the biggest and most basic question. Why is this law even on the books? What's its fundamental purpose?
You don't have to look far. Section 2 spells it right out. The state's policy is to conserve the country's wildlife resources and their habitats for sustainability. Now, that word right there, sustainability, is everything. This isn't about putting nature in a glass box. It's about making sure these amazing resources are around for generations to come.
And to make that big policy a reality, the law sets out 4 very clear goals. Number 1, protect the plants, the animals, and the homes they live in. Simple enough. Number 2, build a system to manage and control how wildlife is collected and sold. Number 3, make sure the Philippines is holding up its end of the bargain on international conservation treaties. And finally, number 4, base all of these actions on real, solid science. All right, let's move on. In any law, the specific words you use are absolutely crucial. So it's time to get our definitions straight and see what these terms actually mean in a legal sense. It sounds like a simple question, doesn't it? Wildlife. But how the law defines this one word gives the entire act its scope and its power. So what actually counts? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Look how broad this is. We're not just talking about animals. It includes plants, that's flora, and fauna. It covers them in all stages of life. So an egg or a seed gets the same protection as a full-grown adult. And here's the kicker. It even includes animals that are in captivity or being bred. This is a huge deal because it closes a massive loophole for illegal trafficking. You can't just say, oh, I bred it myself, so it's not wild. Nope. This law covers them too. It's incredibly thorough. The law also makes a special point to define endemic species. Think of these as the Philippines' national treasures, the kinds of creatures and plants you can't find anywhere else on the planet. That word only is key. It really drives home just how irreplaceable they are and why the country has a unique duty to protect them. And then you have this term, threatened species. This is basically a big umbrella category for any species that's in danger of disappearing forever. The law then breaks it down even further into levels like critically endangered, endangered, and vulnerable. This classification system is super important because it helps officials prioritize their efforts and decide how urgent the need for protection is. Okay, so we've got the why and we've got the what. Now for the how. How does this all actually work on the ground? Let's get into the rules of engagement. At its heart, the principle is actually pretty simple, but it's powerful. You can't just go out and collect, sell, or even move wildlife around. Pretty much any activity you can think of needs official authorization. And here's the crucial part. That approval is only granted if the science shows it won't actually hurt the species' long-term survival. Science is at the very center of the decision-making process. And how do you get that authorization? Well, you guessed it, permits. As you can see here, there's a permit for just about everything. From running a wildlife farm, to collecting specimens for research, to just moving an animal from one place to another. And notice how the validity periods are all different? That's not random. It reflects just how much oversight and scrutiny each of these activities really needs. Okay, last big piece of the puzzle. A law can have the best intentions in the world, but it's only as good as its enforcement. So who's the ref here? Who is actually in charge of making sure this all happens? So the job is mainly split between 2 big government departments. On one side, you have the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or the DENR. They handle pretty much everything on land, plants, animals, turtles, you name it. On the other side is the Department of Agriculture, or DA, and they take care of everything in the water. But check this out. See that one little exception? The dugong, which is a marine mammal, is specifically given to the DENR. It's just a really fascinating little detail and how they decided to divide up the work.
So there you have it. Republic Act 9147 creates this really solid, comprehensive legal framework. It lays out the mission, it defines the players, and it sets the rules. But it kind of leaves us with one last big question. A law can build the house, but what does it take from us, from all of us, to actually make conservation a reality? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.